We're gonna make it look fly with some DIY. We're gonna make it look fly with some DIY. We're gonna make it look fly with some DIY. Uh-oh, thrift diving.
Hey, what's up? It's Serena Pia from thriftdiving.com, which is a podcast, a blog, and a YouTube channel that helps you decorate, improve, and maintain your home with paint, power tools, and thrift stores without sacrificing your budget, the environment, or style. Welcome to episode 61 of the Thrift Diving Podcast. Today, we're talking about hoarding. Well, actually, we're going to talk about not the medical mental health version of hoarding. We're going to talk about the quote unquote hoarding that I do, that you do, that we all do, who are not really suffering from the real hoarding, like on the show Hoarders. But we all keep these things in our house, in our life, that we make these excuses for why we don't get rid of them. And I'll tell you the inspiration for today's episode because my children and I, we actually love watching Hoarders. We don't watch it that often. In fact, usually at night when it's time for them to go to bed, we cuddle up on their floor and we watch something. Well, usually it's like Forged in Fire, or as my middle son is trying to get me to do, watch The Walking Dead, which is not going to happen. I'm not looking at zombies before I go to bed. Just not going to do it. But one of the shows that we have started watching together is Hoarders. And there was an episode we watched this week, and it really struck a nerve with me. And you know how it is on this podcast. I love to talk about things that happen during my week that give me a moment of pause. Because if it's something that makes me pause, it's usually something that probably would make you think a little bit more too. So there was this episode, and this woman, God bless her soul, she missed her husband so much. And you know, they had lived in this beautiful home. I mean, when you saw the home from the outside, of course, it had the normal trash and all that stuff. But it was a beautiful home. It was big. The inside was not quite as bad as some other hoarding episodes, but there was a lot of stuff. But people like us, we tend to know that we see the beauty in things. And when I saw her home, I was like, wow, that's a beautiful home. You could tell like it was just gorgeous. You could see that it was a gorgeous home. There was just too much stuff. And it wasn't quite as dirty as some of the other episodes. But I felt for this woman because her husband had passed 8 years before. And her name's Althea. And her husband had passed. And they loved thrift stores. They loved inventory blowouts because they had a flea market. So every time there'd be this good deal on something, they would go and load up a truck and bring back 15 chairs because, I don't know, maybe a hotel was going out of business. And so they would take these things and resell them. Well, at some point, their home started to simply become where they stored all their stuff. And I could identify with that because when we first bought this house, I got a little addicted to thrift stores because the deals were so good. I mean, you remember in those early days here at Thrift Diving, I mean, my dining room table was $12. So when you find good stuff like that, I mean, good quality wood, it's hard to turn that down when you're getting it for $12. You know what I mean? So this family, her husband and her, they just started filling their home with all these things that they were able to find good deals on with the intention that they were going to sell it in their shop. Well, life took a turn for the worse and he passed away. And instead of the business absolving, she just continued collecting. And I don't think she was able to continue doing the flea market, but she continued bringing stuff in. I think it was the husband that started, but then she continued. And it just got to the point where everything was filled. I mean, imagine the worst case scenario of Hoarders. It wasn't quite that bad, but it was still very cluttered. And there were certain times throughout the episode where she would make these excuses. And it really hit home with me because I could see myself in this woman, not quite as bad, but some of the things that she had said to herself, they were things that I've said as well. And I thought, oh my goodness, even though this woman, I know she's a little, I don't want to say a little extreme, but hoarding is a mental disorder. I don't have a mental disorder. You listening to this, you probably don't have a mental disorder of hoarding, but there were some excuses that she said that were not far off from things that I've said myself about things that I have brought home and my own stack of furniture and, the garage would grow out of control. I mean, to the point where I was having to like suck in my stomach just to walk through. Early on in the thrift diving days, when we moved into this house, we didn't have a lot of furniture. And that's how I was able to afford decorating our house, is because thrift stores, they had everything I wanted. I loved making furniture over, and I just started buying a lot of it, to the point that I couldn't even get through all the projects. And I just started buying things because it was a good deal. And then it got to the point where there was just so much stuff and I couldn't do it anymore. So that was the end of that. Plus, I wanted to use my garage and I couldn't do it with all those pieces of furniture in there. So I started scaling back, and as our house became more decorated, there was less space for big ticket items. I really just didn't shop at thrift stores as much, unfortunately, because I still love them. I just couldn't bring home as much. But anyway, getting back to this episode, there were some things that she said in there that really struck a nerve with me, because these were excuses that I have said myself for reasons why I couldn't get rid of some of the things that I brought home. And I wanted to go through some of these excuses and tell you that we have to be mindful that we're saying these things about the things that we bring into our home and just leave them sit for 5 to 7 years because, well, it was a good deal at the time, or there was some reason why we brought it in, and now it just sits there, right? But before I get into what those 5 excuses are that we need to be mindful of, I want to go back to something that in that episode was really like the aha moment. So in this gorgeous house, right? So this was the home that she and her husband thought was their dream home. I mean, this home was such their dream home that her husband, check this out, her husband paid to get this woman's name, I don't want to say engraved, because it was in brick, but when the house was designed, he designed it with her name on the front of the house. I've never ever seen a house with someone's name on it. I mean, well, let me take that back. There are Trump towers. So yes, some people do put their names on buildings, but this woman's name was at the top, right over at the very peak, the very gable of the front of the house in brick. And this was their dream home. They were going to finish this home. They had put on an addition. But when you looked at some of the footage of this house, like the whole back part of the house, the new part that had been built. When I say new, I think it had been like 8 years or more since that had been built. There was it was just black tar paper. There was not even any brick molding or brick veneer on the back of the house, on the new section that they had built. And when you looked inside, there was, the layout of it was beautiful, but there was like drywall that had never been painted, casings around the doors and windows that had never been installed. Like there were all these things that she wanted to do. She wanted to finish this house. That was her dream. And so with hoarders, they usually have a psychologist who's working on the show, and he comes in and he or she tries to come in and talk sense into this person to make them see that this is a real problem. So during this one episode, during this scene, he says to her, he said, I know that the thing that you really want is to finish this house. And she's like, yeah, this is my dream. I want to finish this house. And he said to her very plainly, he said, I don't think you're ever going to finish this. And I think you are struggling because you're trying to come to terms with the fact that you're probably never going to finish this house. And the look of sadness on her face really struck me because, I felt, how can I say? I felt really, I don't want to say envy. It's such a generic word. I liked that this woman had a dream, had a goal. There are many times people in life, they don't have any dreams. They don't have any goals. But this woman was very expressive over the fact that this home, finishing it was her dream. And the guy told her, he said, you can't finish this house because you have too much stuff. How would you even bring contractors in to finish the house because you have too much stuff? They wouldn't even have a place to work. So, I think what's hard for you, Althea, is that you're having to come to terms with the fact that you're probably never going to finish this house, not in your lifetime. And the look of sadness on her face was just so sad because this stuff was preventing her from reaching her goal. this stuff was preventing her from seeing her dream come to fruition. And it just made me think about me. It made me think about you. What is it that we're holding on to that is preventing us from really living the life and meeting the goals and the dreams that we have for ourselves? Because I think that the things that we hold on to, because of its perceived value, is preventing us from really treasuring the things that are invaluable. I'm going to say that again because I'm getting goosebumps. I'm not kidding you. I'm getting goosebumps as I'm thinking about this. The things that we hold on to because of its perceived value is preventing us from really treasuring the things that are invaluable. So, for example, the activities that make us happy, the people that we want in our life that make us happy, walking into a room and having inner calm and a mind that's very content and not stressed out because we see stuff laying everywhere, or spending time with friends and family in a space, or, think about that spare room that you have junk that you don't really have a place for that you're holding on to. And that room could be your craft room. Just imagine having the space to do all the creative projects that you want to do, but you can't do it because you have all that stuff in that space. So as he was talking to her, as this psychologist was talking to her, I thought, oh my gosh, like we all have been there. We've all had this pile of stuff that has had so much value that it really is preventing us from treasuring the things that are invaluable, right? Like the joy of crafting, the peace of mind of going into a room and having all your materials set out just right, where you know where they are, you don't have to hunt for anything. That is invaluable. Having all that stuff cluttered is not valuable. And I think because we hold on to it, I think it's the perceived value of those things that we're holding on to that really do prevent us from being able to move forward. So think about that for a moment, and let's talk about these 5 excuses, because these are some of the excuses that this woman threw out. And I could identify with all of these. And I am thinking that if we're at least aware, all of us listening to this, most of us, there's not that many of us, but the numbers are growing. All of us listening to this, we all have that clutter somewhere that one of these 5 excuses can really describe why we're holding on to that clutter. Most of us listening are not going to have a mental illness like true hoarding. If you do, I would say, please consult a therapist, because it is something, from what I can tell, just from watching hoarders, that you really do need mental help if that's your case. But I think most of us, we're not on that level. We just, we save things, but it's not difficult and like a real mental, God, I'm not explaining this right. You know what I'm saying? We're mild cases. Let's just put it that way. All right. So let's start with excuse number 1. I paid a lot of money for that. Now, when I was watching this episode of Hoarders, there was this bathtub. They usually have a bunch of stuff in the yard because they've run out of space in the house. They have to put things in the yard. And there was a couple of things that she did not want to get rid of, even though it was obviously damaged because of moisture, just mildew, mold, all kinds of things. But there was a bathtub. And the host of the show was trying to tell her, you cannot put this in your house. I know that you bought this bathtub for the renovation, but it was filthy. And there was a huge crack down the middle of it. And she's like, oh, but I have a bathtub guy. I can call this guy in and he can fix and repair this. She couldn't let it go. And she said, I paid a lot of money for this. She paid $1,500 for this tub. And because she had paid so much money for it, she broke down crying, thinking that here's this valuable thing that's now reduced to trash. But she didn't want to get rid of it because she had paid a lot of money for it. So think about the things in your life that you've held on to that you might have paid a lot of money for, but it's just not serving you anymore. It's broken. It's beaten down. It's not something that goes with your decor. It could be, maybe a dresser that you had bought, I don't know, in 1970, and it's a really nice, thick wood dresser, in that case, okay, I would say paint it. Don't get rid of it. However, I'm just using that as an example. You might have paid a lot of money for it, but it's just not working for you anymore. And maybe you just have it stored down in your basement or somewhere, and you're holding on to it because of the fact that you paid $2,500 for it. If you're holding on to something just because you paid a lot of money for it, that's not a reason to hold on to it. We can donate it. If it's expensive and still has good value, we can write that off on our taxes. Find someone in your family that wants it and give it to them. Because if it's got a lot of value, sometimes I think it's hard to just let any old person take it. If it's someone who's related to you or a friend and we can pass it on to them, I feel like it's more bearable to be able to do that. So however you need to get rid of it, let that be a reason why we don't hold on to it. Don't hold on to it because you paid a lot of money for it. And especially if it's been sitting for 5, 10, 15 years and you haven't done anything with it and you don't plan to do anything with it, but just the fact that it costs a lot of money, you can't part with it. That's one excuse that we have to just not allow it to be an excuse for why we keep something. The second thing that I noticed that she said was, I can sell that. Okay. The funny part was there was all these clothes in her basement and she was holding things up and she's like, yeah, we got these t-shirts and, we didn't pay very much money for them, but I could sell that for $1. And I'm thinking $1 is not a lot for a t-shirt. But anyway, the guy was pointing out, even if you have 100,000 shirts here, like you're not going to be able to sell all of these shirts. It's just not going to happen. So what are you holding on to that you've not been able to let go of because you think, well, I can sell that? You might even have an Etsy shop. You might have a flea market. You might be someone who just, I don't know, maybe you have a yard sale every now and then, and you can't think of just donating it because you could sell it or you can put it on Facebook Marketplace. Think about those things that are just holding you back and you're thinking, I can sell these things. No, it needs to go. It needs to go. And I have my own things too. I have things that I have not let go of, especially tools. I have excess tools, especially now that I've been switching over some of the brands. I've got some older brands, older models of things that I'm no longer using. And of course, some of those things I could donate to some people who live locally. So let me know. Send me an email. If you're somebody who lives in the Maryland area and there's a tool you're looking for, I might have it and I might have a spare one that I would let go just to give you. Serena@thriftdiving.com. That's my email. But if there's something that you say you can sell and you haven't sold it, you haven't done anything with it, let that not be a reason why you hold on to it. Okay, episode number 3. I'm going to finish or start working on that project. This is a big one. I have said this to myself so many times. There are projects that I plan on finishing. I'm going to start the project and it just doesn't happen. And this woman, Althea, she had, all these pieces of drywall. And of course it'd been in there for years. It was all rotted. And she was going to hold on to it because she was going to put that in her house. She was going to have somebody come and install it. You couldn't install that drywall. It was disgusting. But the fact that she said, I'm going to finish that project with this material. No, you're not. You're not. And if you're like me and you've got projects that you've been sitting on them for a while, if you don't have the drive to finish it, just donate it. Just get rid of it. Don't let someday I'm going to start this or someday I'm going to finish this be a reason why you hold on to it. I do it myself, but that's one reason we have to let it go because it will clutter our mind. It'll clutter our spare bedroom, our garage. And that's not really going to, it's not going to get done. It's just not. Okay, episode number 4. It's too good of quality to get rid of. This is one that I can identify with so well. It's a little different than paying a lot of money for it. The reason why is because I find things, and I've bought things from the thrift store that were really good quality. And I didn't pay a lot of money for it. But because it was good quality, it was hard for me to let go of it because it had that perceived value of $100 or, that's $50 and $500, whatever the cost is. It doesn't matter how good of a quality of a product or a piece of furniture it is. It's not doing anything to serve you. It's just sitting there. And we are afraid to let it go because we know it's good quality. So why are we holding on to it? Like, how is that serving us if we're not using it, if it's taking up space, if it's in that spare bedroom and we're not doing anything with it, then it's really blocking us from getting to where we want to be. Like that woman, Althea, I keep saying her name wrong, Althea, like her, all of that clutter was preventing her from finishing her house, from having the beautiful home that she and her husband dreamed of completing together. So that shouldn't be a reason why we hold on to it. Just because it's good quality doesn't mean we should hold on to it. And number 5, one day I'll need it. I can't tell you how many things I've held on to because I felt that one day I'll need this. And I have to tell you, I would think, let me say, my husband, I would say, uses this excuse more than any of the other ones, because he's the person who, when I do try to like get to that point where I don't know, I go through these periods where I'll hold on to things. Sometimes it's not even purposely holding on. It's just I'm busy with other things and I don't have time to get to it. Remember when we did our 90 days to neat challenge back from January, February, March? Well, certain rooms that I was getting to, I wanted to go and clean it out. And in fact, some areas I did. But my husband, he's the one that goes behind me and looks through the bag. And if there's things in there that he sees that, oh, we might need this, he'll take it out and put it aside. And I will admit there were things, this has actually happened where he has taken something out of a bag and then, yes, we actually needed it. So that is kind of a valid excuse. But honestly, if that thing is sitting around for months and months and months, years and years and years, just get rid of it. If you need it again, go buy it. I'm sure it's nothing that's super expensive, so you paid $10, a year from now because of something that you got rid of a year before. Who cares? Just go and pay the $10 and get it. My husband will always get on me about this. I will buy something, not use it, go to donate it. He wants to keep it. I say, no, let's let it go. And then he says to me, well, if you're not going to use it, why did you buy it in the first place? I don't really know. I just thought I wanted it. And it just gets to the point where I'm like, look, just let it go. If we need it, we can buy it later. But for now, it has to go. So those are the 5 excuses that next time you're looking at something in your house that it's been sitting there for a while, you haven't done anything with it. It might even, I don't know, it might even be an exercise bike. Maybe you have it sitting in your bedroom or a treadmill that's sitting in your bedroom and it's just holding your clothes. You might have paid $2,000 for it, maybe, and you haven't used it in 7 years. But should you keep it just because you paid $2,000? Or could you find someone who maybe is a friend or family member that could use it? Give it to them. You're not using it. You're probably not ever going to use it. Just get rid of it. Open up that space and buy some plants or something that's going to make the room feel inviting and not just this big, ugly, black metal plastic thing that has been taking up space for the last 7 years. All right. So here is the homework that I have for you this week. I'm going to challenge you and I'm going to challenge myself to get rid of 3 things that you have been holding on to because you have made one of these 3 excuses for keeping it. I don't want you to try to sell it. I want you to either donate it or give it away to friends or family. That's right. 3 things. And you might even you might even know just right now, I know instantly what I'm going to get rid of. For me, I made my list. I've got my 3 things and I'm going to tell you what they are, but you might have to think about it. Go to that spare room where you've got all that stuff sitting around and look around and say, yep, I'm going to get rid of that, that, and that. And then what I want you to do is I want you to email me and tell me about it. Take a picture of it. Send me a picture of what are the 3 things that you got rid of. And I think what I'll do is I'm probably going to turn this into a blog post. Not all of my podcast episodes turn into blog posts because honestly, I just don't have time to be on every single platform. So sometimes a podcast is really just a podcast, but I like this topic enough that I'm going to turn it into a blog post. And I'm going to take pictures of my 3 things. I'm going to tell you what they are, but I'm going to take pictures of my 3 things. And if you want to do more than 3, that's fine. It doesn't have to be, 3. It can be 5. It can be 1. Whatever feels good for you. But I'm going to write a blog post. I'm going to take pictures of the 3 things that I'm getting rid of, and then I'm just going to donate them. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to get rid of, there is a chair in my garage that has been sitting there for, let's see. Okay, I don't remember exactly when I bought it, but it was probably 2014. Could have been 14, 15. And it hasn't been in my garage the entire time. It's actually a chair. I never even used it. I didn't even want to sit in it because the cushion inside of it is gross. And it was a chair that I bought from the thrift store. It's a beautiful chair. And honestly, I think it just needs some cleaning up. It's just like a red velvet type chair. But the cushion inside of it is very hard. And I don't know if it was designed to be that way or just because of age, it just got, really hard. But because it has, I don't want to say a unique shape, I didn't know what cushion to buy to put inside of it. So I just never did anything with the chair. I did have it here in my basement office area where I still am. I'll tell you a shed update in just a minute. But in my basement area, when I refinished that area or redecorated in 2015, I put it down here just for looks. And then I'm not sure exactly when I moved it to the garage, but it's been there for several years. And it's that piece that I feel that it has a lot of perceived value. Like if I were to see this chair today sitting at a thrift store, I'd probably still want to buy it. But I have no use for it. I don't want to refinish it. I don't even know if it needs to be like reupholstered. I think maybe it could just use some good cleaning. But it doesn't really go with anything in my house. Now, who knows? Maybe it could go in my shed. I don't know, because I do want to bring in some color in my shed. So maybe it'll go in my shed. But it's been in the garage. And at this point, I feel like I just want to get rid of it. So I might get rid of it. So that's going to be my number 1. Number 2, there's a china cabinet that I painted, I guess maybe about a year or so ago. And I never finished adding the door to the front. The door glass had actually broken. And I was supposed to add some chicken wire, fix the door, put it back on. People on my YouTube channel, they said they wanted to see how I'm going to fix the door. And honestly, it's just been sitting in my garage. I have no desire to bring it inside. I have no space for it. I don't know what I would put inside of it. It probably would look very nice in my shed. Again, look at me. See, look, I'm using excuse number 5. One day I'll need it. Or yeah, I could use that. So I probably am just going to get rid of it and not think about all the ways that I could use it and just get rid of it. And number 3, there's a mid-century modern chair that I refinished some time ago. It has a broken arm. I just never fixed it. I mean, it's kind of wobbly. But the chair, I mean, even though it was fun making over, it just never fit into any place in my house. So I never used it. It's sitting in the utility room. It's got a couple of rugs on top of it. I'm going to get rid of it. I'm just going to donate it. I don't need to hold on to it. But here's the thing. When you do DIY projects, that takes something that maybe didn't have a lot of value because you got it from the thrift store and turns it into something that has a lot of perceived value. So for me, once I do a project, so if I paint something, if I reupholster it, that project now has a lot of value. And it's very difficult for me to get rid of things, even years down the road, if I realize, oh, you know what? I did this DIY reupholster project or painted this piece of furniture. It's not working in my decor anymore. I don't think I want it anymore. It's hard to let it go because of the time and the effort that I put into it. It has a lot of perceived value. So that's another thing to be careful of too. If you're someone who likes to do DIY projects, once you put that first coat of paint or that first staple and you finish a project, it now has more value to you because of the time and effort that you've put into it. But we can't let that be a reason why we hold on to things. We have to let it go. If it's not working for our decor, if it's been sitting in a room with, piles of books on it because we don't really care about it, we have to let it go and make space for the things that we do care about. All right, so that's what I have for you today in this episode 61 of the Thrift Diving Podcast. I just want to thank you for showing up every single week. Some of you I hear from on a regular basis, and it means a lot to me that you show up here every week and listen to the podcast. So before I tell you about the shed, I just want to thank you for that because it means a lot to me. And every week I look at the numbers and see how many people are listening. I'll usually get an email and it tells me how many people have downloaded episodes. And it seems like the number is growing. And that always feels good because when you start something new and you see just a few people, it's not very motivating to continue. But I love doing the podcast. It's fun. It's a lot of fun for me. And I hope that it's fun for you to listen to and get you thinking about some different things throughout your week. Okay, let me give you a shed update. I am still having leaks coming in at my door in the shed. So, there was a guy that came, I guess it was last week or so. He did some caulking. It didn't really help. There's still water, a little bit of water that's coming. It's not huge puddles, but it's damp where you see the water that's trickling in. And the caulking that he did, it didn't really do anything. So I contacted Tough Shed again and said, hey, you got to send somebody else. This is not working. So they're going to send someone else, but the time it takes to get someone to come out, it's like a good 2 weeks. And so every time it rains, I go in there just dreading to see the moisture, the little dark stain where the corner of the door meets the floor. I hate seeing that. It just makes me feel anxious. So I decided I was going to try to find a solution. And I realized my door doesn't have those little weather stripping foam corner thingies. I don't know what you call them, like foam pads. So I found a company that makes, I guess, some good quality ones. It should be coming in the mail. And I'm going to try that. Fingers crossed that that's going to help to prevent the water coming in. I am also going to caulk and seal all around the door because I realized that Tough Shed didn't do that. And I really feel that they should have done that, which they didn't. So I've got some caulk. Even though the guy coming back probably would caulk, I'm going to go ahead and just do it. Like, I don't want to wait for the next rain to come and then I'm discovering more water. Like, each time it rains, it's just more of an opportunity for mold to grow. And you can already see when you open the doors of the French doors, you see like right at the bottom of that door jamb, you see where it's getting a little moldy and wet. So I tried those things, just ordering those pads. They're going to be coming this week. And today we had some pretty good weather and I just made sure I went around and filled as many things as I could with wood filler. And then just did a coat of paint, some really nice quality exterior paint. And tomorrow I'm going to go around and I'm going to caulk the crap out of that door because there's no caulking. So any little bit of space, water is going to get into. So I'm going to try those things. I might even do a water test and aim the hose over that way and see if water comes in. Because I think all next week, I don't think even this weekend, we're expecting rain. So I'm going to do my own little water test and see what happens. That's the update on the shed. The update on the kitchen, if you remember in the last episode, we had a leak in our kitchen. And when ServPro came, they took out, I want to say, like they took out a huge chunk of flooring. And when the adjuster came from the insurance company, he's like, yep, you're going to get a new floor. And I'm like, whoa, I wasn't expecting that, but thank you. So as of today, I had Home Depot come to measure, and I've decided that I'm going to do a ceramic tile in the kitchen. And this might be a little bit more than what, we've received in terms of insurance. But if there's anything that I need to add to it, that's fine. But Home Depot came to do the measurements. I'm going to have them do the floor just so I can get it done and just have it out of the way. Because I'm working on the shed. I don't have time to figure out how to lay down a new floor. And then in the foyer, I've decided there's old tile there, ceramic tile. So I'm going to have them bust out that tile and just have a continuous, probably like a plank, ceramic tile plank going from the foyer into the kitchen. And it's going to be all one continuous flow. So that is what is going on in the kitchen. So right now we have just this huge section of of flooring that's gone. It looks horrible, but this is what happens when you have a water leak and there's damage there. Everything has to come out. So it just happened to be that we get a new flooring. So, and I also plan to paint the kitchen cabinets, and I might even get new countertops because it's been 12 years since we moved in. The countertops are still in great condition, but the ones that we ordered when we moved in, I felt like, and I think I told you this in a previous episode, I don't feel like I really had enough choice, right? Like we were just going with whoever our real estate agent had said, hey, I know this guy, he's going to give you a good deal. And he came with like 2 or 3 colors. And I was just a new homeowner who was freaking out because now we have to get a new kitchen and we didn't plan to spend that $10,000 for these things. So I was just taking whatever he had available, thinking that I didn't really have a choice. So the countertops that we have in there now, I've never been a big fan. It's a little too dark for me. I'm someone who loves light, bright, airy spaces. So I'm thinking we're just going to go light and bright and airy. So it just opens up the entire kitchen. And I figured, well, we're getting a new floor. I may as well paint the cabinets and put a new countertop. Hey, we may as well get some backsplash too. So you will see some kitchen content coming from me very soon. And I think that's all the updates that I have for you this week. It's kind of been a slow week, but I don't know. Next week is going to be even slower. I don't know if I'll have an episode for you next week. It just depends. I am going to try to maybe take off most of next week. The kids are off for spring break, so I feel like I want to take that time off and just spend time with the family. We don't really get time to spend together as a family that often. So if you don't hear from me next Friday, you'll know why. But maybe what I can do is try to pre-record an episode and have it ready for Friday. But we'll see. We'll see. I've been going strong every Friday and I don't want to lose that momentum. Anyway, I would love to hear from you. What are the 3 things that you are going to get rid of this week because you are tired of using those excuses to hold on to it? And I'm going to repeat this. The things that we hold on to because of its perceived value is preventing us from really treasuring the things that are invaluable. Keep that in mind when you're going through your house looking for those things to get rid of. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining me for episode 61 of the Thrift Diving Podcast, and I will talk to you next week or the week after. Have a good weekend.